My name is Ken Fladager. I'm running for district attorney. 3 counties, Sandoval, Valencia, and Cibola. I started out, I guess, giving my oath to the Constitution on a hot July afternoon in Annapolis, Maryland. At age 17, becoming a midshipman of the U.S. Naval Academy. Graduation next 10.5 years, charging around the Pacific and Indian Oceans on destroyers or running black boats in the jungles of South America or Central America. I ended up eventually here in Albuquerque and decided it was time to go to law school. And so after doing a couple of years in the reserves during Desert Storm 1, I finished up my time at the law school and graduated in '92. Went into private practice, sort of a one-man outfit. I was my own secretary, my own driver, my own courier, you name it, I did it. And in the 7 years that I was in private practice, I did everything from criminal defense to federal civil rights lawsuits to cases on the reservation to going up to Denver and arguing a case before the 10th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals. In 1999, I was able to get myself hired in the DA's office in Albuquerque, which is kind of where I'd always wanted to be anyway. Anyway, I spent the last 13 years as an in-the-trenches trial prosecutor. That's all I do every day. And I've handled everything from homicides to graffiti, hit and runs, drug dealing, drive-by shootings. I don't think there's a crime listed in the criminal manual that I haven't handled. It's not uncommon for me to go to court in the morning and have up to 20 cases to handle that day. And I love it. I thrive on it. There's nothing better than I like to go to work in the morning and then go to court. And basically, do the right thing. As one of the mottos that I look at whenever I'm handling a case is you always do the right thing for the right reasons. And I screen all of my own cases, which means I look at those police reports that the police prepare, and I look at what they did as far as did they read this guy their rights, did they have, were they able to get a warrant, were the circumstances such that they didn't need a warrant, and I look at it and say, is this a case I should be prosecuting? Because if somebody screwed it up along the lines, and I know darn well I'm not going to succeed, I would rather dump it right then and there. Maybe get on the phone with the officer involved and explain to him the error of his ways so it doesn't happen again. But then, if I like the case, I decide the charges, I prosecute it all the way through, whether that's a trial, whether that's a plea bargain. And I'd like to think that, at least in my office, things are working extremely efficiently. I've never had to dump a case because it's something that we did. They've always gone through to completion. And that's not happening in the 13th. Sandoval, Valencia, Cibola counties. Cases, police reports are disappearing. They're not ending up with charges being filed. There's such a high turnover in the various offices of all 3 counties that I have actually been told by a judge's office that they're very frustrated that in one of the counties, none of the criminal cases are working because the remaining lawyers who stuck around and the new ones that have had to fill in are so unfamiliar with all of the cases, they're just asking for continuances. So nothing is happening. And pretty soon you're going to run up against time limits, whether imposed statutorily or whether by the Supreme Court. And cases are going to start getting dumped. There's basically a total failure of leadership at the upper levels of the DA's office in these counties. With cases falling through the cracks, with people leaving the office, it makes you wonder how the district attorney can take the time to schedule fundraising golf tournaments on Fridays to raise money for his campaign to keep his seat. I would think he'd need to be in his seat in his office, and he's not there. I mean, somebody has to take the reins of that office, get it under control, treat the cases as they ought to be treated. I know I'm running out of time. I love doing cases so much that what else do? I train the young lawyers in the office how to do a case properly and how to win it. I also coach high school mock trial for the last 16 years, so I teach high school students how to do a trial. Somebody has to be there to mentor the attorneys, to teach them how to do it right and get things done. They can't be off golfing.
To my questions, but
I gather.
Okay, so it's on the NDAA, and just wondering if where you stand on that, and if you would aid federal officials in trying to enforce that law if somebody wanted to detain an American without due process of law.
Well, okay, here's one of the fundamental things we have to deal with here is prosecutors. We are forbidden to take part in investigations. We have what they call some limited immunity from lawsuit. As long as we stay within our job of prosecuting a crime, we have that immunity for screw-ups, so to speak. If we start getting involved in telling other people how they can or cannot investigate a case, we've stepped out of that area that we're allowed to be in. I mean, if somebody were to call and say, here are the facts I've got, which officers frequently do, I'll say, well, if you open up your handy-dandy statute book and you go to this particular statute, I think you've got the elements for this particular crime, and do with it as you see fit. But the prosecutor's office is not in the position of telling somebody how to go about enforcing the law. So, in that respect, our hands are a little bit tied. And frankly, I wouldn't expect to ever have that issue cross the desk.
Ken, one of the things that we hear you say about the DA's office currently is that it's not managed well. So what is your experience? What do you feel that you're going to bring to the table here? Were you elected? I mean, why would you manage it better?
Well, the first job I had out of undergrad school, the first destroyer I was assigned to, was managing 2 divisions of approximately 100 enlisted men and a $2 million budget. And that's kind of what I've been trained for in the military. Managing the budgets that you're given, managing the people that you've got, leading them, training them, encouraging them. And I've been doing that since, what, 1978. I do some of that in the office that I'm currently in, encouraging and mentoring people. I believe that a prosecutor, the chief prosecutor, the chief elected prosecutor, that has never tried a case ever, how are they supposed to know how their people are doing? Kind of difficult. I will go into the office knowing what it is to prepare a case for trial, to negotiate with defense attorneys, to go into battles over what should be suppressed and what should not be suppressed in front of the judge. Working with the employees in the office, both the attorneys and the support staff. And I will make darn sure that everybody who's hired in that office, such as the deputy district attorneys, all see things my way and know how to do these things as well as I do. And so from the top on down, we can give the employees support and attorneys all of the support, the encouragement, the mentoring that they need in order to get the job done correctly.
I know that you, and like the judge, you don't create the law. That's done, I guess, at the legislative level. how you mentioned something about like when you look at the cases and you say, well, I gotta look and see if the police officer or whatever didn't screw up or whatever because of the way the laws are written. Do you feel, this is probably more of just a what's your opinion kind of thing, that the laws seem to be more protective of the criminal or us as the victim? Like, for instance, what's just happened in Colorado. I think the guy should get the death penalty, just right off the bat. But as you see these and you see these cases come through, I feel like someone asked the questions with the other, I think the person running for DA, about all these DUIs we get. Yeah, I've had 20 of them. I'm out again. I'm tired of that stuff. People are getting killed more with cars than they are with guns. I just want to know what your thoughts were on that. Thank you.
Well, that question touches on an awful lot of things. Let's see where to start. Yeah, the legislature is responsible for writing, and it's our job to prosecute under those laws. Now, the fact that somebody with double-digit DWI arrests is still out driving the car, absolutely flabbergasted. That person should be behind bars. Now, some of that, I mean, there are a lot of things that go into it. And I've said this before to other people that our judicial criminal system is like a three-legged stool. One leg is the cops. They've got to do the reports. They've got to investigate crimes. They've got to do their job properly. Another leg is the DA's office. The DA's office has to evaluate the cases, has to prosecute them to the best of their ability, and to get the sentence or the punishment that they think is proper. The third leg of the stool are the criminal judges. Sometimes the sentence or the disposition of the case is left completely up to the judge. They can give the person the maximum sentence. They can suspend it all and put them on probation. At that point, we as the prosecutors have nothing to say about it. That's the decision of the judge. But for the system to work, all three legs have to work perfectly, or at least do their jobs. And I think that, for instance, a prosecutor who has a police report that he's looking at, it's a DWI, and you look in the records and you can find 4 prior convictions. If you're going to, rather than pulling those up, getting certified copies, using them in the sentencing phase, if you're going to instead offer him a DWI first offense, just because you're feeling overwhelmed or you've had a bad day, that's wrong, and I won't tolerate that. If you've got what it takes to prove a crime, you prove it. If there's an aggravating factor, a firearm use, an elderly victim, you use those aggravating factors. You go for what that defendant deserves.